Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham Ekam, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham Ekam, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham Ekam, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham
One of the most celebrated experiences throughout human history is romantic love. Romantic love has become very central to people's lives. Whether you take Kalidasa's Mega Sandesham or the modern day movies, praises of love are sung everywhere throughout ages. To fall in love is universal. It is a phenomenon that has existed throughout history. What is this love that most of humanity runs behind? This romantic love which most of humanity runs behind is pleasure. And please understand, pleasure is a very small part of love. Pleasure is a fleeting experience of love, while love is heartfelt connection. Love means being able to feel what the other is feeling. It is a massive opening of the heart where you feel others' joy and you celebrate it as though it is your own joy. It is when you feel others' sadness, anger, anxiety, and then you reach out to them to lift them out of their unhappiness. Awakening to love is a revolution in consciousness. And awakening to this love is a far cry from pleasure. It is a far cry from the romantic high that you feel momentarily. Let us understand romance first. When in romance, your brain moves into a state of pleasure where everything feels beautiful. That is, the moon, the tree, the leaves, what you see every day, it feels more delightful when you are in love. Your brain is flooded by a chemical called dopamine in that romantic love. The pleasure chemical is the dopamine. When you are in romantic love, your brain also moves into a space where all fear and all social judgment disappear. That is why they often say love is blind. Unfortunately, this high of love, it does not last. Because the dopamine, the pleasure chemical released by the brain in that euphoric love, would eventually subside. And when that dopamine subsides, your relationship turns ordinary. That is, judgments, fault-finding, they make their way into the mind-brain complex. Now, the problem with the dopamine is this dopamine, once you are used to it, once your brain is used to it, it is asking for more dopamine. It is a constant asking. That means it never leads to fulfillment. And when dopamine subsides, it makes you feel low, that you'll end up craving for more. You will end up craving for more of that euphoric experience. No amount of pleasure fulfills. It leaves you empty. Therefore, you are going to be craving for more and more and more. It is like you are hungry forever. Is this hunger for this euphoric love, or is this hunger for more pleasure really love? True love nourishes both the giver and the receiver. It is not hunger. This hunger is the unconscious urge behind why people chase romantic highs. Think about it. What do you usually do when your high, the romantic high or the euphoric high, fades away and you have not awakened to true love? Trying to fulfill your hunger and believing the problem is with your partner, you move to another person, chasing that euphoric high. You keep chasing new people to fall in love with. When you fall out of love, you often crash land into depression. Being addicted to romantic highs is as dangerous a problem as being addicted to any substance. This perpetual hunger for pleasure, please understand, is a terrible weakness. You can destroy your life. It can destroy relationships. It is possible to overcome this hunger for pleasure. It is possible to go from this breakdown to an extraordinary breakthrough in consciousness. Let me explain to you with a classical example from India, the story of Tulsidas. It's not a religious story. He was a romantic who became enlightened. He was abandoned at birth by his parents because they considered he was unlucky because he was born in an inauspicious time. Being abandoned at birth is the most damaging thing that can happen to a child's brain, mind, and consciousness. You think a newborn's consciousness is very physical and it can sense the cold, the warmth, or the physical pain. That's what you believe. A newborn's consciousness is in a very expanded state. A newborn feels if he or she is welcomed or rejected as soon as they are born. This is because they are in a very sensitive, expanded state at the time of birth. And if infants are denied of love, denied of a warm welcome, or they're denied of loving physical touch during the first few hours of birth, these children would grow up with a chemistry in the body that is constantly hungry and longing for love. I don't know if you have seen a mother cow goes on licking her newborn calf. Loving touch is so important to infants of most living beings. In fact, this longing for love in a child who is not held or who is not welcomed becomes a destructive samskara, that is, a destructive imprint in their consciousness that makes them hungry, that makes them long for love throughout their life. Do you know how much a child, an infant, needs to be held and loved? So now coming to Tulsidas, is born and abandoned. A kind woman brings him up, but that hunger for love remains in him. He grows up, marries a very beautiful woman. And for the first time in his life, Tulsidas experiences romantic highs. And his brain is charged with those experiences of love and dopamine. The romance chemical is flooding his brain. His entire body is alive with the chemistry of pleasure, which he thought was love. He was very attached to his wife. So one day, when he's not at home, his wife has to go and visit her maternal home because of some family emergency. Tulsidas comes back home and realizes that his wife was not there and she's gone. His longing and hunger becomes unbearable. In the middle of a huge thunderstorm, lightning and downpour of rain, Tulsidas sets out to see his wife. Tulsi swims across the raging river, and then he knocks on the door of his wife's house. And when no one opens the door, he jumps over the compound wall holding on to a creeper. This all happens in the dark. And his wife looks at him, all dripping and drenched, and his eyes aflame, seeking that experience of high in that brain. He's addicted to that high. His wise wife is shocked at seeing a man like this. And when she finds out that he climbed over the compound wall holding on to a vine, she takes him out to see what the creeper was, because she knew there were no creeper around her house. So the creeper which he held on to, it was not a creeper, but it was a huge python he had held on to, and he had climbed over. And they walked together to the riverbed, and she is scared looking at the torrential river that he had crossed for her. And with great concern, she says to him, "What kind of love is this that you have for me? This is not love. This is insanity." She continues, she says, "Do you think I can satiate your thirst for pleasure throughout my life? Do you think this madness is sustainable? Is this love at all?" Her wise inquiry was like a bucket of ice-cold water on his burning fire. He walks away from his wife's house in great pain and anger. Slowly he realizes that his dependence on his wife for fulfilling his craving and longing was making him into a slave, was making him unwise, was making him blind. In fact, he was so possessive of her that he gave no room, no freedom, no space. He realizes that his attachment to his wife was an addiction. It was a disease that needed a cure by an inward journey. And that was the beginning of his journey to enlightenment. He had moved from breakdown to breakthrough. Every addiction, please know, is slavery. Whether it is you being dependent on a person or a substance, or you're trying to quench your brain's hunger for pleasure, you are becoming a slave. And you will live in fear of losing love. Open your heart and feel. Allow your heart to feel a love that knows no fear, a love that knows no disappointment, a love that is not built on hunger, a love in which there is no desperation. When this hunger for love ceases, what remains is love. Being hungry for love is not love. Only when this hunger ceases, there is love. You are love. And your love is just not for one person. It is for all. When you go beyond this hunger for love, when you go beyond this hunger for pleasure, you will experience love. You will be delighted. You will be eager to be in each other's presence, even after 30 years or 40 years of living together. This love is not a chemical. It is not even limited to the brain. This love is not being hungry for love, nor is it longing for pleasure. When your heart neurons, the 40,000 neurons, are awake, the experience of love takes birth in you. This love is like a radiance that shines from you. We can say it is one of the most spectacular experiences that can unfold in your consciousness. And we are leading you on a path where you can awaken to this unsullied experience of love within yourself, independent of any external factor. In these transformed heart states, you know how to access your own internal paradise. That is the path of Eka. That is the path of liberation. That is the path of enlightenment.